Afternoon, Mayor Bradley and council people, and thank you for the opportunity to present my thoughts. And thank you for the people that have been patient, that have waited my presentation. I've been a citizen of Sarnia since 1980. I'm a retired landscape designer and builder. I'm not an ecologist, just a passionate member of the planet. Following thoughts and ideas, although maybe shared by others, are mine. A progressive, modern, open-minded community of the 21st century prides itself on the diversity of its citizens, diversity of race, diversity of culture, diversity of religious beliefs, and diversity of demographics. A progressive, modern community of the 21st century will also be judged on the diversity of its other inhabitants, the flora and fauna, the natural space for the well-being of other citizens, the biodiversity. A progressive community where its citizens have ready access to tree canopy, meadows, the sound of birds, the mental benefits now clearly evident that one derives from being in a natural setting. So what is biodiversity? Biodiversity is, it's everything out there. It's everything above the ground, it's everything below the ground, natural. It's everything above the water, and it's everything below. It's the wind, it's the clouds, it's the trees. If you put food in your mouth today, it was due to biodiversity. If you took a drink of water, it was biodiversity. If you took a breath in the last 2 or 3 minutes, it was biodiversity. And it's under attack, and it's under duress, and it's being eliminated at a very rapid pace, and that's no secret. You may be saying to yourself, well, we live in an urban setting, and there isn't just room for biodiversity in amongst us, and I disagree. Some may think that biodiversity needs to move outside the city, and there's no room out there either. So I'm not sure where biodiversity is moving to. It's under duress from all angles, and it's being reduced. And we have, I think, the right to our kids and to our grandkids to try to reverse some of this movement. So the issue that's being discussed here today and will be is the term naturalization. Naturalization is the process of ecological restoration that involves returning an altered or degraded site to a more natural condition through the use of trees, shrubs, and flowers that are native to the area. And I want to make it clear that it's to a more natural condition. Doesn't mean it has to go 100%, but there's got to be movement in that direction. So I want to make it clear that I'm not on an all or nothing crusade when it comes to biodiversity restoration. So I'm not endorsing entire parks or public ways be converted. I'm only asking the council to look through a different lens and see the direction that you could take this community through. We have the ability in this world to do anything we wish if we have the means, the will, the support, and most importantly, do we have the courage? Do we have the courage to make the changes and the tough decisions? If progressive, forward-thinking, and determined people were deterred and silenced by naysayers, our beloved Canatera Park wouldn't exist. We wouldn't have Howard Watson Trail gracing our borders. Our waterfront might be in private lands, and we would not be on the dawn of electric transportation. The motion being brought forth by Councillor Dennis draws attention to 2 locations in the city that apparently the masses are in an uproar. Agreeably, the Mike Weir Park project, in my opinion, is an example of where more insight, maybe better plant material selection, and a scheduled maintenance follow-up program was needed. But to call it a blight and let's move in and professionally cut it is not the voice of a visionary person. Mike Weir Park can be a model of balance between the natural world and the one dominated by humans. Mike Weir Park is an easily reworked native area that can appease both sides of the debate, and maybe I can help. And people are getting way too far ahead of themselves to not let the Berger Road project prove its long-term worth. And there are other examples within the city, some with mixed results. But you don't fold up the table and say, well, we gave it a try, it didn't work, let's move on. No, we learn, get back on the bike, and we try again. These attempts should in no way hinder or deter the city from continuing on the path to offer real-life, biodiverse locations and moments within its boundaries. Ticks, mosquitoes, coyotes, it's like wearing a seatbelt. We take preventative measures. And let's not be so selfish. It's not all about us. So let's think outside the box. As a report here, I have a report dated July 10th, 2023 from Stacy Forfar, General Manager. And it's about the hiring of an ecologist. And I just want to quote, when it comes to transitioning the management of public parks to a natural environment, opportunities are significant. Communities from coast to coast are making progressive changes in how they deal with biodiversity. The previous slide was Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. And that was just in CBC, just 6, 7, 8 days ago. And in size-wise, it's like 160,000 people. So it's not just big community actions. So let's think outside the box, as it was stated. Let's change how we look at green infrastructure. That it may take some effort, as change is at the edge of our comfort zone. As an example, so these are a list of some of the passive parks that we have in this city, and there's 60 of them, at last count that I have. And if you go to the far right-hand column, the access to the nature trails, out of the 60 parks, 5 of them have access to a nature trail. There's very little draw. Next slide, please. There's very little draw to walk in, sit, read, or observe anything natural in most of these parks. Many of these parks offer no ecological benefit to wildlife or magnetism to the residents that are adjacent. So I ask, what is the appeal for someone visiting these parks? So next slide, please. So let's look at just one of the parks, and let's look outside the box. Let's be creative here. So Connaught Park, it's at the end of Mill Street, kind of bordered by Lakeshore, Cathcart, Murphy, and Indian Road. Pretty well an underused park. Very little tree cover, burnt out grass, minimal playground equipment, and really not an environment that you're going to take maybe your family to and lay out a blanket and have a picnic, or take a book, set out a chair, or take a walk through. So again, let's look at creative solutions. So the second statement that is in this same report dated July 10th says the current service model around the management of our public lands does not consider land as habitat for wildlife or plant species. And that could change. We could take one park at a time. I mean, look at the difference that this superimposed image has in Connaught Park. So we go in there and we plant some native trees, and maybe we don't cut the grass in a particular area. You create a mini forest that now has its own ecological benefit. The humidity is different, the wind is different, the shade, the sunlight, and now you're drawing people from the residents, possibly from the neighborhood, to visit this park. And now maybe a nature trail can be run through this park. So Connaught Park becomes, rather than a no in the last column, it becomes a yes. So these are simple solutions. They're not messy, they're not chaotic, as some projects can be, but it is a step towards a naturalized in conclusion. And I'm just going to throw in there, just on a side note, that please don't underestimate the importance of oak trees in our environment. They are the keystone tree. They are the building block. They are the gold medal winner in the forest. And just as a side note, I think we should be trying to protect our oak trees diligently. They're so critical to the environment. So the third statement, from the same point, kind of drawing back to Connaught, it is important to note that this would be a fundamental shift away from the current operating model, but an exciting and progressive one for the city to advance. Educating the public that the landscape needs to change can take time, but the time is now. We can't stay in the mow it, trim it, remove it, bury it era and be left behind. We need to partake in the new age urban landscape. So educating the public that the landscape needs to change can take time, but it is now. This council has the power And I'm hopeful the vision to move this city in a direction that will elevate the well-being of both people and the natural environment we need to share. I ask you to not support Councillor Dennis's motion to eliminate the work put in by volunteers at Mike Weir Park and Berger Road. There are solutions, but removing them is not one of them at this point. Amazingly, some still question climate change, but there is no denying the biodiversity loss is real. It's happening every day around us. Things that we've seen as children we don't see now. And it's big. But we can't let it paralyze us into non-action. Let's start with our own little world, our home, the city of Sarnia.